I'm Juanita, and this is a windy day. It's so windy, in fact, that I've decided to forgo pretending that I can talk live and just, record a voiceover for this here Creme Egg Chick. So, this is going to be a knitting pattern tutorial video for this little chicken. Now, this chicken fits inside it a Cadbury cream egg. Now, if you don't have Cadbury cream eggs where you come from, I'm really sorry because they are delicious, but it's an Easter egg, basically. It's an Easter egg. And this here chicken fits on top of this here Easter egg, and it just sits there on top of his little nest. Now, there's going to be a couple of options for you, but this is how we go. Yeah. So we're going to start off with some yarn. We need some colour for the nest. I've gone with this leftover beigey colour. This white colour here for the chicken, and a bit of orange for his beak and comb. Of course you can go with red, but you know me and red, I don't really have red. And some 3.5mm knitting needles. Of course you don't have to use the 3.5mm knitting needles. This will work just as well on 4 or 4.5 if you've got a DK weight or Aran weight yarn. And it depends how big your egg is as well. So we're going to start by casting on some stitches. Now this whole video is going to be in real time. I can't remember exactly why I decided that I was going to do it in real time. I think because most of them recently have been quite short videos. So it's been like, here's your information, absorb it real fast. Rather than having, here's your information interspersed with a lot of things that you didn't ask for. So we're going to start by just casting on 20 stitches. This takes me a long time. The casting on process, I've got to learn some other different cast-ons. Now, I was just at the Warrarapa Wool weekend, and one of the things that I was hoping to get to do was to learn a whole stack of different cast-ons, from a German one with a double twist. Yeah, a few other options anyway, but it didn't work out for me. I ended up teaching a class instead, which, to be honest, I jumped at the opportunity to teach a class, so, that's all good. Here we go. We've got our first row coming along. We're now just going to do 6 rows of stockinette stitch. This was stocking stitch back in my day when I was growing up. So we're just going to knit the first row, purl the next row, knit the third row, purl the fourth row, knit the 5th row, and then purl the 6th row. So that's going to give us a rolled base to our chicken. This here you're doing in the colour of your nest. Now, changing colour for the nest is completely up to you. You don't have to. You can. You can have one colour for each of the people in your life. They could all be the same. You do you, boo, is the main thing. This is me counting the stitches. Oh, yep, we got 21. Let's get rid of that. So, first row, we are knitting the row. Of course, I also decided to film this outside. So, in filming this video outside, you will notice my yarn blowing around like there's no tomorrow. It's also one of the hottest days in the last wee while, and I'm recording voiceover in the heat. I don't do well in the heat. Anyway, so we've got 6 rows of stockinette stitch to make up the little nest of the chick. Now this is going to roll up to make like a little roll hem, which you may have done on some hats or something like that before. Now, there's a couple of rows of rib stitch after we've got this bit, which will stop the rolling occurring any further. I mean, the rolling, it's one of those things that normally you look at it and you go, oh no, I don't want it to roll. But in this case, we do. Now, the advantage of the rolled hem for the nest on this chicken is that it allows the chicken to sit flat on the table and not roll. This is with the 3.5mm needles and the DK weight yarn. This is a tight fit on our cream egg, a tight fit. I wanted it to be a tight fit, mostly because I don't want the cream eggs rolling around. I mean, who wants roll around cream eggs? If they fall on the floor, the dog's got them, and then it's all downhill, isn't it? Dog's still currently watching me. Yeah. So, we've got these 6 rows of stockinette, which, again, at this point, I'm thinking, really, Juanita, you've chosen to do this whole thing with a voiceover in real time. Nobody needs this level of boredom, but it's what we're going with. So where are we up to? We are up to 4 rows, I think, at this point. So we'll just pull out some more yarn from my ball. This is still yarn left over from my book fest last year. So that's Cascade Merino. I got it from Skeins. I really like the Cascade Merino. It's it's an Aran weight yarn. So an Aran weight yarn here on the 3.5mm needles is ridiculous. It does become quite tight. Often I do this in a 4mm needle, but today I was feeling the 3mm, 3.5mm needle. But yeah, 4 or 4.5mm needle will work just as well. Now, we're just knitting away here. Everything is grand. Shall I tell you about my weekend? Now, there's going to be a longer video coming up on my weekend because it was the Wadded Upper Wool weekend, but I'll tell you about the other part of the weekend. So here I am. I'm sitting around. I'm having a lovely time knitting away. I've met new people. We're talking about tuku panels. We're talking about German cast-ons. We're talking about steeking. I mean, we're sharing information about podcasts, and my phone rings. So my phone rings, and I think to myself, "Oh, what's going on here?" So I answer the phone. It's my dad, and he's saying, "Can you come and pick me up from A&E?" I said, yes. What are you doing at A&E?" It turns out that he was out camping. He was having a lovely time camping with his brother and his nieces and nephews and grandnieces and grandnephews and stuff like that. And one of them has this dog. And now this dog is a big rescue dog. So this big rescue dog bit him in the face, and he got rushed off to the hospital. Which, you know, to the credit of everybody involved in the healthcare system, I know we give our healthcare system a hard time because it is under pressure and it's not the greatest, but I do thoroughly appreciate having an A&E system where you can actually just either call the ambulance or go to A&E and you will be seen by somebody. And you may have to wait a while, but, you know, you'll be seen by somebody. He fortunately didn't have to wait too long. They get him in, they put him on a bag of antibiotics, and then I get the call. And the call is, can I take him from one A&E over to another A&E? So I say, of course I can. So I drop my knitting and I drive 30 minutes north. I sit there while he finishes his bag of antibiotics, while they go through all the things and they check all the coverings. He's got this face mask on. And I did say to the nurse, why is he wearing the face mask? Is that, you know, because of germs, or is it because of my benefit or all the rest of it? It's mostly for everyone else's benefit. So there he is, and he's got this great big chunk that's been bitten out of his face, and we're off to the plastic surgery on a Saturday in Lower Hutt. So we drive over to Lower Hutt, and it's at this point that I discover that my phone doesn't work anymore with my Apple CarPlay. Anyway, we've finished our 6 rows here. So my 6 rows are here done, and I've cut off the brown yarn, and now I'm going with my white chicken yarn. Now, this is where we start to get some chicken shaping going on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 2 rows of ribbing. That's going to pull in the chicken around the top of our egg. So the first, it's just a knit 1, purl 1, rib all the way across the row. So knit 1, purl 1, right across the 20 stitches, and then go back again and do the same thing. So we've got 2 rows of knit 1, purl 1, rib, and it's just going to be great. Right, so we've got this knit 1, purl 1, rib for 2 rows going on, which will allow me to carry on with my story. So I find out at this point that my new phone has the right cable to go and plug into my Apple charger thingy in the car, but it won't connect to Apple CarPlay because I've got the USB-C to USB-C, not the USB to USB-C cable with me. So here I am, I'm driving over to Lower Hutt thinking, I don't know exactly where the hospital is. Like, I've been there before, but every time I've been there, I've been following the GPS. But this time, of course, I can't be following the GPS, and I'm also, you know, carrying a passenger who's bleeding from the face, and he's on all sorts of painkillers and what do you call them, antibiotics. So we're travelling along, and I'm trying to navigate my way to A&E, thinking there's a whole stack of things that he's still going to need once he gets into the hospital. Like, his phone is only half charged. He's texting all of his friends to say he's been bitten by a dog in a half comatose state, so that's kind of hilarious. And then I'm thinking, right, I probably have something in my car. Don't panic. Follow the flow of traffic. Oh, that looks familiar. There's the hospital. Drive around the block. Get there and find that the machine that vends the cards for parking is broken down. So I pull straight in there, which does mean that in the end I ended up with free parking at the hospital on the weekend, which, you know, score! So we go into the hospital waiting room at the A&E there, and the nurse points out and she says, well, look, there's a big difference between the plastics department are waiting for you and the plastics department know that you're coming. So we're sitting around waiting for them to be free enough to take him in and to give him a room and board and all the rest of it. Anyway, right, so back to the chicken. So here we are. We've got our 2 rows of knit 1, purl 1, and we're just going to tighten up those bottom 2 stitches. So now we're going to start shaping the chicken. This will curl up to make the nest, and we're going to shape out sideways for the tail, and then we're going to shape inwards up towards the head. So this is folded in half and seamed. So basically the seam goes down his spine. That's a good way of describing it. So we're going to knit 1 front and back. That's increasing 1 on this end, and then we're going to knit to the other end of the row, which is very exciting. That'll mean that we've got 22 stitches on the needle at the end of this row. So we're in Lower Hutt. We arrive at the A&E. We are taken through eventually to the plastics ward, where they ask him a whole stack of questions and assess his suitability for surgery and all of that kind of stuff. In the meantime, I'm knitting on a big giant vest. Now, the last time I took this man through to this hospital, I was knitting on socks. So there we go, we're going to knit front and back of this last stitch. So we've increased a stitch on each end. We've got 22 stitches on the row, and now we're going to just purl the next row all the way back. So I'm sitting there, I'm knitting on my vest, getting a lot of compliments on my vest. It's in a reddy orange colour, which was not necessarily my first choice for a colour, but it was the one that Man from the Joymate Club sent through. So that's exciting. It does mean that there's 2 projects that I'm working on at the moment. One is green and one is red, and they're both beautiful, but they're usually my least favourite colours. So, you know, we live, we learn, we change, we grow. All of those sorts of things. Anyway, we get to the end of this row, and now we're going to go on to the next one. Now, this one here, we're going to knit 1 front and back in the first stitch, and then we're going to knit all the way till the last stitch on the row. Now, then we're going to increase another one there. So that's going to take our total number of stitches up to 24 at this point. This is as wide as our Easter egg chick is going to go. Now, if you are making these for eggs that are larger than a cream egg, what you can do is just keep going out for another couple of stitches in the same sort of way. Just repeat these last 2 rows where you're knitting to the end, knitting the row, but you're increasing 1 at the end of each knit row, and then decreasing. When we get to the decreasing bit, that'll make sense later too. So we're going to increase this one here. So you can go up to 26 or 28 stitches just by doing extra rows. And now we're going to purl back on this row here. We have just recently picked up a few more chickens, if you can hear chickens in the background. Same number of beagle, who you can probably hear sauntering around behind me. So he's done his pre-tests for going in for surgery, and then they say, when did you last eat? And he's like, dinner last night, because this happened as he was cooking breakfast. So somewhere in his caravan there is a cooked breakfast, bacon, eggs, hash browns, toast, the full 9 yards. And they're like, when did you last take your medication? And he's like, I haven't taken it today because I haven't had breakfast yet. I mean, that all works in favour of having surgery under general anaesthetic. Okay, so now we're going to start decreasing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to slip, slip, knit. Now, you can choose just to knit 2 together here, and there are no craft police, no one's coming for you. You can 100% just, you do you, boo, and you can just knit 2 together at that point if you're not comfortable doing the slip, slip, knit, because this is an Easter egg that you're pulling out once a year. You don't need to go to the level of slip, slip, knit, but we're basically just decreasing a stitch right at the start there, and then we're going to get to 3 stitches before the end of the row, and we're going to knit 2 together, and then we're going to knit the last stitch. So there we go, we're just going to do a regular knit 2 together. This is me trying desperately to keep everything in frame. Now, when we go back the other way, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're now going to be decreasing on purl rows as well. So we're going to purl 1, and then instead of just carrying on to purl, we're going to undo a stitch there because, you know, we forgot. We're going to purl 2 together, and then we're going to purl all the way across to the start of the row, or the end of the row, 3 stitches before the end. Now when we get to 3 stitches before the end, you've got 2 options. One, just do a standard purl 2 together, no craft police, you got this, you do you, boo. Or you can do what I prefer to do to get all the stitches leaning in the same direction, is to purl 2 together through the back loops, which is a little bit awkward, but it creates a nicer stitch. So you're just going to go in behind that second stitch, just like that, and purl the 2 of them together so that when you pull them off, they're going to lean in the same direction as the stitches on the other side. See, see there, they're just leaning in a nice direction. So now we're back down to 20 stitches. So we're going to knit 1, and now we're going to slip, slip, knit to decrease another one. There we go. We're going to knit to the end of the row. Well, not quite the end of the row, we're knitting to the last 3 stitches. And when we get to those last 3 stitches, we're going to knit 2 together and knit 1. And that will take this row to 18 stitches. So, I mean, cutting the long story short about Dad, he did get told by the doctor that as long as no one came in from an accident or like a baby, he would be given surgery that night, and he would know by 10 p.m. By this point, his painkillers have worn off, and he's hungry. So we've got a hungry, retired man on our hands at this point. Right, so we've got 18 stitches on our needles. So we're going to purl 1 on the next row, then we're going to purl 2 together. We're going to purl to the last 3, and then we're going to purl 2 together through the back loops, or just purl 2 together, and then purl 1. And that will take us down to 16 stitches on this row. So I said to him, look, as soon as they've got you hooked up to your liquid IV, I'm going to have to head off because I'm never going to be able to find my way home in the dark because I can't get my navigation system to work. So in the end, I pack up, I start trying to recount my steps through busy lower hut on a Saturday evening. So we've got 16 stitches on our needles here. Right, so we're now going to knit 1, and then we're going to slip, slip, knit again. We're going to knit till the last 3 on this row, and then we're going to knit 2 together and knit 1. That will take us to 14 stitches on this row. And you'll see that the backbone's coming in. Backbone? Back shaping? The back of the chicken is shaping along nicely at this point. And my story is getting all held up. So I'm patting myself on the back for the fact that I'm getting away while it's still light enough. I stop, I get myself some Burger King. And then, okay, this is the last decreasing row that we've got for a long time. So we're going to purl 1, we're going to purl 2 together, and then we're going to purl to the last 3 on the row, and then we're going to purl through the back loops 2 together, or we're just going to purl 2 together. You decide. It's completely up to you when it comes to that one, because purling 2 together through the back loops is a little bit awkward and unnecessary, and you know, no one's going to complain because the chicken's really cute. Anyway, so I get to the big hill to drive home, and there's policemen everywhere, because what seems to have happened is that there was a shooting at a supermarket that then meant that the police had to try and put the little spikes down on the tracks to stop the getaway driver or whatever it is. So, oh, honestly, Saturday was a little bit chaotic and I didn't get to dinner at the Wararapa Wool weekend. Anyway, what we've now got is this backbone shaped of our chicken, and we are just going to stockinette stitch 4 rows. We've got 12 stitches left on the needle. So we're not even going to think about it too much. We're just going to be doing some casual knitting. How are we all going? Has anyone else had a crazy couple of days? And then in the meantime, while all this is going on, the Booktown 2025 program got released. So while the Booktown program got released, I've got my early access pass to get my tickets because I never miss the Mother's Day afternoon tea where there's a whole stack of authors talking about their books and you get high tea. And my best friend and I have been now every year. We don't even bother checking who it is that's talking. We just book tickets and we go. It's always a good time. We have a great laugh. Yeah, it's one of the things that we do together every year. So I got my tickets for that. And then I see that there's a Norwegian guy who's coming out because he's written a book all about Norwegian wood chopping and stacking, which I don't know if that's interesting, but it was interesting enough to me when I'm overtired, sitting in a hospital waiting room, that I sit there and purchase 3 tickets to that, thinking, yes, I'm going to take my dad and my partner, and we're going to learn all about the art of Swedish wood chopping or stacking or something at Booktown weekend. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good times had by all. Yeah. So this is our purl row here. So when we finish this purl row, we have done almost all of this chicken. So you'll be able to see its shape when we fold it in half, just like this. Yes, doesn't it look pretty? Yes. Or her, you decide. I mean, probably technically a her if she's going to be sitting on an egg, but yeah, I'm not going to presume to know her gender. So we'll just finish this purl row. And then we've got one more row of this chicken body, and we're done with this. So this, our last row here, is what we're going to do is we're going to just knit 2 together the whole way across. We've got 12 stitches now. We're going to end up with 6 stitches at the end of the row. So purl 2 together, knit 2 together, sorry. Knit 2 together, knit the next 2 together, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, and then finally knit the last 2 together. And there we go, we've got 6 stitches and we've pulled things in around the top of the chicken's head. So we're going to take our yarn in the breeze, because doing this in the breeze is just adding the degree of difficulty. We're going to snip it off. We're going to choose a needle. I've just chosen a really boring needle here. It's just a regular yarn needle. I think it's one of my Hobie needles. It's come from one of the knit along packs. We're going to thread said needle, and then we're going to fold our chicken in half. Or we're just going to slide all of these remaining stitches onto our darning needle. And 5, 6. And we're going to pull that through and pull it tight, just making sure I haven't made a little knot there. Once we've pulled it through and pulled that tight, we're going to fold them in half and line up those 2 edges. Now we're going to stitch through each side. You can do a nice little mattress stitch if you like. I'm just going with a whip stitch because it doesn't really matter. We're just going to pick up one leg from one side and one leg from the other side and just stitch up his backbone any way you like. Again, you can do a nice little mattress stitch, you can do something that's quite invisible, or you can just do what I'm doing and just doing a little whip stitch, because this is an Easter egg cover. This is not a garment that one's wearing to one's best friend's wedding. This is a silly little yarn stash busting project that's going to sit on the table on Easter morning, obscuring a cream egg. Just long enough that I don't stop and go, ooh, cream eggs for breakfast, and make poor life decisions about my health and well-being. So when we get to the end of this white section here, we're just going to secure that in. We'll just make sure our yarn tails are out of the way, and we're just going to knit through that stitch there, and then we're just going to wind our way with the needle head right up through that seam, just so that we can darn in the end of our tail there. So I'm just going to pull that through, and I'm going to trim that off, just out of frame, because of course I am. And there's our little chicken body. So I'm going to darn in these other ends. I'm going to pick up this brown one, and this brown one I'm just going to stitch together the 2 sides of our little nest. So we're just going to do the same as we did before. just we're going to go through, we're going to do some little whip stitches. We might just do 3 or 4 down the length of this one here. Very exciting, I know, watching me stitch things. Yeah, there we go, lots of fun. So once this is stitched to the end, just secure it. I like to secure it just by going through the same spot again, and then going through that seam just a little bit, and just snag as much of the yarn as you can, and then snip off your end just out of frame, because why would anyone want to see that, you know? Just what kind of tutorial do you think this is, Juanita? So then we've got this rolled edge bottom, and we've got our little chicken body at the top. We're going to add a little beak on here, and we're going to add a little comb on the top, and he's just going to sit there like that. I do need to darn in those other ends, and that's going to happen off camera. Right, to make his beak, we've got this orange yarn, and we're going to cast on 4 stitches. You of course can use red or pink. I've gone with orange because I don't really have a lot of red. Still one of those colours that I struggle with. I struggle with red. There are some reds I like. I like an orangey red, but I struggle with those really bright reds or the burnt reds. You never know what to do with them. Anyway, so we've got 4 stitches, and we're going to just knit 2 together. Slightly off camera, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So we've gone from 4 stitches down to 2 stitches in this row, making it nice and simple. So at this point what we're going to do is we're going to trim our yarn, and we're going to just pick up the end of this yarn, thread it through the needle, and thread the needle through our 2 remaining stitches. Now those 2 remaining stitches become the point of the beak, and we're just going to, yeah, there we go, we're going to slide that through. We're going to pull that off. Then we're going to just fold this in half and throw in a couple of stitches just to secure it so that it's a nice little beak. Right, so once we've got these 2 stitches folded in half and secured, we're going to just take our chicken, and we're going to line up that cast on edge on his face. Now this can be a little bit tricky because I don't really think there's anywhere to pin this. I just sort of use the chicken body as a thimble, for lack of a better description, and then just sort of stitch the beak onto the face. Right, so once we've sort of gone around there and we've popped a couple of stitches in his face on either side, underneath, just pick up 1 stitch from the chicken body, and then 1 stitch from, or 1 part of a stitch from the beak. It's a little bit tricky, a little bit fiddly, a little bit of a pain in the butt, but it's worth it in the end because it looks quite cute. Then all you really need to do at that point is to stick your yarn through your project into the inside, and once you've got both yarn tails on the inside, you can just tie them in a knot, because no one's looking on the inside. Well, they are looking on the inside, but they're looking on the inside for a chocolate Easter egg. They're not looking on the inside to look at the quality of your workmanship on your silly little project to create a chicken to sit on your table. You know, so we'll just stitch it through probably more times than it needs for holding a beak onto a chicken face for an Easter egg, but we're just going to pull it through on the inside there. Yep, there we go. Right, there's his little beak. Isn't he cute? Like, ah, you can leave them just like this. When I made them for my Auntie Jo and my Uncle Paul, I just left them without the little comb on the top because I forgot to put a little comb on top of them, and they look just as cute without it. So we're just going to poke that through, and then I'm just going to throw a little whip stitch in under the beak where no one can see it going through the white yarn. But yeah, then I'll just tie some knots and trim those off. Yeah, just need to trim those off. Yeah, get that sorted. So the next thing we're going to do is his little comb, so he can just sit there on the side. Now his comb's going to be quite easy as well. We're going to get our orange yarn again, or your red, whichever you want to do, and we're going to cast on 7 stitches. Again, watching me cast on is a lot like losing the will to live, to be honest. Casting on is not something that I do very well. Anyway, long story short with the dad saga. Dad is fine. He had a surgery late last night. At about 2 in the morning, he sent a message through to say that he was awake and they were feeding him, and he was eating, so that was good. This morning he's less chipper because his phone's going flat. He's got my battery pack, he's got my my cable, but we didn't have a wall outlet charger for him, so my sister's sorting that out for him today. And then he'll be sorted. Because if, the man doesn't have enough entertainment, he will be bored. There's only so many people coming through and visiting you in the ward constantly. So my sister and my niece have gone over there to check on him, to buy him some new socks and undies, because it's easier to buy him socks and undies than drive out of our way to go to his house, find his clothing, and then turn around and drive the opposite direction over a mountain range to the plastics ward at Lower Hutt Hospital. Anyway, the surgeons have done an amazing job. The nurses are doing an amazing job in looking after him. And yeah, so this row here, all we're doing is we are knitting 1, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together. And then our last row is a purl, and we're going to just purl, cast off. So just purl 2, cast 1 over, purl 2, cast 1 over. This is only a 2-row pattern, this little comb. If you can see, there's like a row of holes in the middle of it. If you're an eagle-eyed viewer, or you know what's going on here. I've done this on a hung hem on socks and on a singlet, which is quite nice. There goes my dog barking at whatever my dog's deciding to bark at today. We're going to cut our yarn and thread it through that last remaining stitch and pull that tight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this little puppy over in half. It's quite small, so it's a little bit challenging, but look how the little roundy bits pop up. So we're going to take our little roundy bits and we're going to just stitch it on top of the chicken head here. Now, I do know that I've got like 3 minutes of myself stitching this on top of his head. So do you want to watch 3 minutes of me stitching this on top of his head? Well, who knows? So what my suggestion is just bung a quick whip stitch in the end where you've got that yarn tail to start with, just to hold it nice and flat, because stitching this on top of his head is, well, it's the same as bitting on the beak. It's an unnecessary fiddly task, to be honest. I'm trying to go through the comb and then pick up a stitch on the other side and then come back through the comb. So yeah, I'll probably cut out a couple of minutes of this, because literally nobody needs to see me do this for this long. Yeah, so I've just trimmed the last little bit off there. So basically this was my attempt at doing a video where basically this is full length from beginning to end of me making this chicken. You can do it in about 30 minutes. I tend to do it a little bit faster than this when I'm not trying to film myself and try to keep everything slightly out of shot with each go. I still need to darn in these ends. I'm just going to put in a little eye on either side with some black embroidery thread, or black sock yarn I find works really well. And then we're going to shove it on top of a cream egg, and that is it. He sits there, or she sits there majestically and can birth this egg, which is chocolate deliciousness. It sits sort of slightly on an angle inside the chicken. Just like this chicken's head is sitting slightly on an angle, and this shot here, oh, that's a terrible shot. Terrible shot. I've got that all twisty. There we go. Try and straighten up his head. So there we go. That's our cream egg chick. They're really easy makes. They're really quick makes. They look really cute. People go, oh, chicken.